Um, so when you need me to stop, feel free to just talk out loud and say, "Hey, Michelle, can you stop for a minute?" Because I may not be able to see any of the things you may be doing to indicate otherwise. Okay, so let me go ahead and share. All right, make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Okay. All right, and at this point, you should be looking at the first page of the presentation. Does everybody see that? Yes, that would be, yeah, okay, awesome. Super. All right. So here we are, unlocking possibilities, how AI supports adults and children with disabilities. Let me see if I can move through these slides like I normally might. Ah, there we go. Hold on. It's a little different format. We're a Microsoft school, and I'm not sure if I have the control to move through these the way I thought
You
I
should.
could.
You should be able to set, I'll set two.
Yeah, let me look. I'm looking at the menu items as far as let's see. Okay, let's see.
If
Um,
there's present right there, if you hit the present button, you should be
I
able to.
could, and what I'll do later is I'll have to switch back because I'll be going back and forth through some of these tabs. But
Absolutely
I
go for it.
should be okay. There we go. Woo, sweet, love it. All right, it's just the right key. See? Okay, so on let me go back up one more. All right, so what you're going to get out of today, I hope. Well, first thing I'd like to say is you don't need any prior experience with AI to gain some great knowledge out of this evening. Tonight's kind of practical, it's simple, and it's hands-on. I'm hoping that what you can leave with are some research-based insights into how AI can support learners of all ages with learning differences and without learning differences, could support everybody. And then also, I hope you can leave with some prompts that you can use right away or practice with. And I hope you learn about some new tools that maybe you haven't heard about that can support learners of all ages. And these are tools that you can try soon this week or tonight. All right, so the agenda, we're going to define AI and then generative AI, the differences between the two. We're going to talk a little bit about why AI matters. We'll identify some recent research about AI for learning and LDs. We're going to talk about how to use AI effectively, and that really gets down to creating prompts. We'll do a demonstration of some sample prompts just for those of you who maybe haven't really tried using, say, for example, ChatGPT to just see what that looks like. And then we'll also wrap that up after the demo with, of course, we need to discuss some limitations and the risks with using these tools. And then we'll wrap it up by considering some practical tips and some resources that I've prepared for this evening that I'll share with you in the chat towards the end of this session time together. Okay, so what is AI? Artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, in the most simple way, is the ability of machines or computers to mimic human cognitive functions. And so I think there's a lot of talk right now around AI and some maybe some fears around it, which are absolutely valid. But I wanted to point out to you the everyday uses that we already are probably engaging with AI that we might not think about. So, for example, and I'm going to it's a list here, and I'm just going to read through some of the examples that I have. So, virtual assistants, you've probably heard of Siri or Alexa. These are AI-powered assistants that can help with tasks like they can help set reminders for you, they can play music for you, they can answer some questions that you may have. You know, hey Siri, can you tell me what the temperature is going to be tomorrow, or something like that, right? We also have smart home devices now. So an example of that would be like a smart thermostat that learns your temperature preferences or adjusts those settings automatically. We have smart lights now that can control the lighting schedule in the home and adjust the color or hue based on your preferences. We have streaming services. I know probably most of us are familiar with those. So like Netflix or Spotify will recommend shows, movies, or music based on your viewing and listening history. Social media, for example, Facebook, Instagram, they're using AI to filter content, to recommend friends, and show targeted ads, which I know you've seen those probably if you're on social media, wondering why is this ad showing up? I was just looking at this 2 seconds ago. Um, There's also navigation and maps. So, like Google Maps or Waze is another app that people might use. That's using AI to suggest the fastest routes, update the traffic information in real time, and then predict travel times. There's also email filters that you use all the time, like with your work email. So, for example, Gmail is using an AI powered spam filter, and it's organizing your emails into what it thinks are unwanted and what it's going to throw up in your inbox. Online shopping, Amazon and eBay, for instance, they are using using AI to personalize product recommendations based on your browsing and buying habits. Customer service. If you've been to shopping this time of the year, for example, for holidays, you've been online, you probably noticed a chat bot pop up in the corner of a web page, which can be either annoying or helpful. I prefer to be able to select the chat bot and chat when I want to, but sometimes they just pop right up and say, "Hey, what can I do?" But many websites are using these AI chatbots to assist customers with inquiries and troubleshooting and et cetera. We've also got face and voice recognition. So, like Face ID and Google Photos, they use AI to recognize faces in images and to use facial recognition for phone security. So, you may already have a smartphone that requires you to show your face, and then that unlocks your phone for you, for example. And then autocorrect and predictive text, type in a text to your friend, and then it slips in something that you didn't really mean to type, but it did it because of predictive text, and then you send it. Those can be some funny moments, but they're there to help suggest words and correct typos, ideally, based on your typing patterns. So again, that's just trying to point out to us, what's AI? Well, I think we are steeped in AI in many, many ways already. So then we switch gears to generative AI, and I think this is what everybody is talking about right now. And generative AI is going to generate new content based on your prompt. And so I have an image on the screen here that's just showing a person holding two electrical cords. One cord is connected to the AI as like a computer chip, it looks like in the image. And then the other cord, which looks like two cords in an electrical socket, one of them has prompt written over it. So it's when the prompt and the AI come together that things happen. And that's really the difference with generative AI, is that you have to give it an input to get it to do something back and produce an output. Whereas these other tools we mentioned are all automated and more or less behind the scenes. So some examples we have here: generative AI tools that are text to text. So you type in your text-based prompt and it will generate a text-based response. So most folks have heard of, if not used already at this point, Chat GPT, and it's widely considered to be one of the more versatile conversational AI that is primarily a text generator, but it can also generate multimodal responses. I don't use it for that reason. I go there primarily for the text generation. Claude, another generative AI tool. It's a text generator as well, but Claude's known for being more safety focused. When Gemini was created, I believe it was from Google, some of the folks who created it, they sort of left Google and went on their own way and then created Claude because they were concerned about the ethical issues in using these tools, particularly students who are coming in and using these tools. So it's more safety focused. And when you log in, if should you go to Claude and log into it, it's going to say, "Hi, I'm Claude and I'm trained in ethics." And it's going to let you know all the things that it's good at, or what it's been trained to do. Poe is not necessarily a generative AI, it's a platform, but it lets you access many different AI models all in one place. So I really enjoy using Poe for that reason. And then, of course, I work at a college, and when we're, looking to do research, of course, we have our library databases, but now we also have a tool like Perplexity. That's a text generator with search integration. So it's connected, its data sets are connected to academic type databases, and it's going to search for research focused materials. And then it's going to link to real sources and provide real citations that are accurate. ChatGPT has gotten much better at doing this, but I will tell you, when I first started using ChatGPT, for example, I was like, hey, can you help me create this annotated bib for some colleagues of mine? I just need to generate some quick summaries. Here's some drafts. We need to clean it up. And it went on to create sources that weren't even in my list or made up fake academic articles. So it doesn't do that so much anymore now, but it did like a year ago for sure. I don't
Hmm.
see it doing that much now, but I've been using ChatGPT for over a year, and ChatGPT, for example, what's as most of these all of these tools here do, except I'm not sure about Perplexity, has a memory in the sense that it remembers what our chats were. It has a context now for that. So whenever I go into ChatGPT, it kind of already knows what I'm looking for and how to modify it, which is interesting. Okay, so these are the text-to-text tools. There are many others. If you go to Poe, the platform, you can access many more models other than the ones I've just mentioned here. Um, there's also we have, whoops, I'm sorry, I clicked in the wrong spot. Generative AI tools that begin with text and then turn that text into an image. It can turn it into music, video, maps. So, for example, DALL-E, Imagen, OpenArt. These are all examples of generative AI tools that can create images, illustrations, and artwork from text descriptions. Suno, which is a lot of fun. You can create songs and musical tracks from your written prompts, which because really I've enjoyed that. Sora and Pika are two different generative AI tools that can generate short videos or animations based on text descriptions. Of course, I would use these with caution. There can, some of because you are building short videos and animation, rapid animation could occur, flickering. So you want to just use these tools with some caution. And as I mentioned at the bottom here on this slide, enable the accessibility settings when you go into these tools, because some of them offer you the ability to reduce the animation speed. There are some screen filters that maybe affect the lighting on the screen or in the interface, like dark mode, for example. So check, whenever you go in, when you get into those spaces, and just spend some time looking at the interface and clicking around to find out, where's my privacy setting? How do I check the accessibility? Okay, so now we're going to shift gears. We've kind of just taken a quick list here of some examples of some more of the popular generative AI tools, and now we need to talk about their impact. And the research is giving us a clear picture of how AI supports comprehension, executive function, independence, accessibility. So here's what the research says, and this is based on a review of the literature that I conducted here with one of our research librarians, and we limited this search just from 2020 to now because we were really looking at them. Prior to that, there really wasn't a lot of research on these tools. So what do we know from the research so far? There are some studies that are suggesting strongly that AI can help learners read, watch, and navigate content more easily. So some of these studies are using these tools, and then they have a group of participants in the study, and they're looking to see how much did it help them read, how much did it help them, stay focused or engaged, or was this tool able to help you navigate? So, one of the most exciting ways that we're using, I think, not necessarily generative AI, but other AI tools, um, is to create captions for our videos. We have text to speech tools that we use. We also have to create alt text for our images so they're accessible to folks who use screen readers. And these tools can create audio descriptions. So I think that so, for example, the students at Landmark College, when they're turning in assignments, they need to be accessible to their peers, especially if their peers are being asked to then read each other's work and provide feedback. So they need to learn how to use these tools and set their documents up so that they are accessible to someone with a screen reader. But anyway, short of it is that it does improve access because generative AI is going to provide multiple ways to take in information. There's also research that supports that AI can reduce your cognitive load. Cognitive load is the amount of, it's a combination of the amount of working memory we have in our brains, which is very limited for all of us. We can only hold about three or four things at a time in our working memory space. And when we're stressed or have some executive function variability, then that working load decreases, and so the desk space in our brain becomes smaller, and in the sense that there's just fewer availability for the working memory. So what we try to do is reduce the extraneous load, and the extraneous load is anything that we can eliminate or remove, for example, from a student's work assignment that gets in the way of them completing the task. So you can imagine you've probably been in some courses, maybe yourself, or you had a professor that loved their subject matter so much, and I am guilty of that, that I probably flooded the students with too much. And that's definitely taxing the load, and it doesn't really help students learn. So AI can simplify complex text into clearer, easier to read versions. That lightens the cognitive load. Um, if you don't understand something, you can ask the generative AI to offer an explanation kind of at the point of need, the time that you need it. Um, so, for example, when our students are looking for personalized explanations and it's 1 a.m., faculty member's not going to answer that email at 1 a.m., then maybe this isn't the worst thing to do, would be to try to understand it better and then running it by their teacher later. Um, but we do know that AI can help people with memory processing and our energy, support those energy differences. Um, Executive function scaffolding. We know that AI supports executive function needs because the AI can help us break tasks into steps. It can help us plan things. It can provide reminders, checklists, organizers. Can also help students initiate a task. Like, I'm really having a hard time getting started. How do you recommend I do? It can help you focus. You can set up timers in your generative AI to say, look, I'm going to work on this project. I need 10 minutes. Give me a timer. And then see what, you work for 10 minutes and then it reminds you, okay, your 10 minutes are up. It can help you organize, and it can help students initiate, focus, and track progress. So this is all in the literature that we found in the last 5 years. But like I said, there's not a lot, but this is what we are finding in the literature. And this is specific to mostly young adults and adults who are using these tools already. And we believe that generative AI can develop learner agency. Um, AI can help students take charge of their own learning. It can explain concepts in a kid-friendly language. It can translate or summarize the homework quickly. I worked at a writing center for many, many years, so I think I had thousands of students across the university would come into the writing center and say, I have an assignment and I really don't understand what it is that I am supposed to be doing. So, someone like me would have sat down and said, okay, let's try to work this out together and understand it. And AI can help do that now as well. Um, could translate or summarize your homework, as I was saying, and then it also helps students manage their workload, and it can help them learn to work more at their own pace and figure out what that pace is. And so the I don't know if you've heard of universal design for learning. I did put a link in this presentation so that you can check it out. I strongly recommend, especially if you do have kids in school right now of any age, to look at what the UDL guidelines are. Even if you're an adult and check out the UDL guidelines because employers are now looking at these guidelines. And the idea behind these guidelines for universal design is that we design learning environments for everybody, that we're mindful of everybody in the space and that they're truly inclusive. So that means, providing multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation. So AI can offer us multiple ways to learn and not just one. So It can support diverse communication and thinking styles. Um, so yeah, there's a very strong connection. I think out of all the things that we looked at, aligning with universal design was the most consistent result that we found, which is a good thing. So now that we've looked at, some of the research, we'll sum it back up. So why does AI matter now? It can improve access, which means that AI can help make learning and information easier to use and understand. It can reduce cognitive load, which can help take some of the mental load off on a challenging or low energy day. It can scaffold for executive functions. It can help learners plan tasks, start activities, stay organized. It fosters learner agency. It helps people learn more independently and at their own pace. And it aligns with this universal design for learning, which means that AI can help provide multiple ways to learn something and multiple ways for you to show that you understand it.
Mm.
So the implications of this is that generative AI can be used then to manage fatigue. It can be help us organize aspects of our daily life. It helps us it can help us understand complex information, like medical, legal, workplace, academic documents. Especially like I read legal documents and I don't know what I just read. So I will put that document into AI, removing all the personal identifiable information, and then I'm like, okay, now I know this. I understand this contract now. Um, and it supports communication as well. So AI can draft clear emails or help you with the tone of an email, which is really useful if you're really having a bad day and you have to send an email to a colleague and you're really frustrated with that person. And then you can ask the generative AI to say, just can you tone this down for me? I need to sound it this way. And it'll modify and offer a suggestion for how you could probably change that email. So anyway, it can help you draft email and messages for schoolwork or healthcare settings for that matter. All right, so now we want to switch gears a little bit and talk about prompting. This is how we use the tool effectively for generative AI, because remember the distinction between just AI and then generative AI was the prompt, and you control the prompt that you put into the AI, and it's like a genie. And in some ways in the bottle, right? You ask it a question and it gives you an answer, and it's going to answer it based on exactly what your prompt says or does. So it's really important to think about your prompt. Um, so when crafting prompts and working with students here at the school, especially like interns that work in our department, when we've been building a chatbot, for example, to help students with online course navigation, we identified some rhetorical elements of the situation that we were in. So we thought about the role of the AI. What kind of persona did we want the AI to have? Is that matter? So in this case, for building the chatbot, the students really wanted the AI to have a persona that was friendly, approachable, um, not real talky, um, kind, and also neuro-inclusive. And so then we defined what neuro-inclusivity means so that it would know what we think it means. And then we also describe the purpose for the AI. What is the job or the task that you want this generative AI to do? In this case, the purpose was to help students navigate their online courses. The audience, you could specify the audience for the generative AI. So in this case, the audience of this tool would be Landmark College students who range in age from about 18 to 28. And we are a neuro-inclusive institution. So that's the audience that the generative AI would be working with. That's the group of people who would be prompting this tool. You could also let the generative AI know what the genre is that you're creating. So in this case, um, we really weren't trying to create a report or something like that. It's just questions where students come in and ask to navigate. So we're like, we really don't need these outputs to be long. Keep it short. And we limited the word count. I think it was like under 100 words. And then we asked it to format it so that its outputs were in a large type font. type font, like a size 14 point. So those are the kinds of things that you can also specify. And you can also give the generative AI some constraints, which would be some restrictions or limitations that you want to place on it. And of course, if we're building a chatbot to help students navigate their online courses, then it's really important that the AI doesn't do their homework for them in that course. And so I mean, like, just, yeah. So anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the constraint was you cannot tell the students how to do their homework because we weren't building a tutor. Just wanted to build a navigation bot. So that was its purpose. And when we didn't specify that restriction, it quickly wanted to help us and be the tutor, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but it's just not what we wanted this one to do. So we placed that constraint on it. And then the context would be any other relevant information that you'd want to provide. Um, you know, so in this case, we provided some relevant information related to a previous focus group that we had conducted with students about things that they found were frustrating with their online course templates and the struggles they were having with navigation. So after you've kind of identified some of the key features that you think this generative AI needs to know about, so it's going to generate an output that matches your desires and what you're hoping for. These kinds of rhetorical elements can help help the generative AI hone in and focus more on produce something that's going to be closer to what you want. So after you maybe created this prompt, put it into your generative AI, and then it's going to spit out very fast an answer. And you may find out, based on what the output is, that you need to refine your prompt, which is perfectly typical to go in and go, oh yeah, I didn't tell it to not to do X, or I didn't mention this, and this is what I mean by the genie in the bottle. Be careful for what you wish for, in the sense of whatever you tell it to do, it's going to take that pretty literally. And so you'll see, you need to refine your prompt. And then I always recommend comparing outputs. Especially if I'm trying to create something really, really important. So when we were creating this chatbot, we used ChatGPT um, to help us generate the prompt to create the bot. So we were prompting it to create a prompt. Um, and then we used that same prompt in Claude. And then Claude gave us recommendations for how we should modify that prompt. Then we put that prompt back into ChatGPT. Then we put that into another one. And so we just started to improve overall. We were learning things from each of those different models because they're not all going to put out the same output for you. So I strongly recommend that you compare them for the really important projects. So now we're going to move on into some demonstrations. Um, I've got four examples that we'll take a look at. One is to how can we make reading easier? Number two is turn an assignment into steps or task. How to get started with writing. And then I threw in here also how can we prepare for an IEP meeting with the assistance of a generative AI. So the first demo for reading, as you can, on this particular screen at the bottom, I've listed the prompt. Um, in this case, the prompt reads, rewrite this paragraph, which we don't have the paragraph yet. It's just the prompt, right? Rewrite this paragraph in clearer, simpler language for a middle school reader. Could change that to a high school reader, could change it to a third grader, but in this case, I'm just saying a middle school reader. Keep all the ideas the same. I don't want the AI to change, start interpreting. I need it to just tell me what this really says. So keep all the key ideas the same. I need you to use short sentences, everyday words, and make it easy to understand. Do not add any new information or remove any important points, because if you don't tell it to do that, it could make its own decisions for you. So I'm going to show you now. I'm going to switch to a new tab. I've already have ChatGPT open. So here we go. You see now where I've typed in that prompt I just read to you. And then I picked a paragraph from a medical text, and it reads, Temporal lobe epilepsy is characterized by recurrent seizures that originate within the medial and lateral aspects of the temporal lobe. These seizures may involve complex behavioral manifestations, alterations of consciousness, and I can't even, I don't know what this word is, cognitive disturbances. Management requires individualized pharmacological treatment and in some cases surgical intervention. So I typed that into this area here, and this is what it's told me. It said, here is a clear middle school friendly version that keeps all the original ideas. And then it provides the rewritten paragraph. Temporal lobe epilepsy happens when a person has repeated seizures that start in the inner or outer parts of the temporal lobe of the brain. These seizures could cause unusual behaviors, changes in awareness, and problems with thinking afterward. Treatment usually involves medicine chosen for each person, and sometimes surgery may be needed. So it's a modification, sounds less textbooky and a little more user friendly in that way. I put in another paragraph too. I gave it an example that would comes from a business text. This is like a document that is being shown to the board of trustees, explaining some of the strategic initiatives that are happening at the company. It reads the organization's strategic initiatives are structured around a multi-tiered framework aimed at optimizing operational efficiency and fostering cross-departmental synergy. This requires the alignment of stakeholder priorities, integration of data-driven decision-making processes, and continuous evaluation of performance metrics to ensure long-term sustainability. So, put that in, and then it pumps out, okay, here's a clear middle school friendly version that keeps all the ideas, and then the rewritten paragraph. The rewritten paragraph, as you can, this is to me much better. The organization has a plan with several layers to help it work better and help different departments work well together. And to do this, everyone's goals must line up, decisions must be based on good data, and the group must keep checking its progress to stay successful over time. So that's just an example of you could put in something and it's going to, if you wanted the middle school version, the eighth grade version, the third grade version, it will alter it.
Mm.
You could even, uh, I mean, if you really wanted to have have some fun, you could actually. I've asked ChatGPT to explain some concepts to me from the perspective of of a favorite fictional character. So it's pretty funny, actually. I asked it to explain photosynthesis, and I told the generative AI that you are Barbie, and you are going to explain photosynthesis as the way Barbie would do it. And
Mhm.
lo and behold, it actually sounded a lot like Barbie. I would imagine Barbie to sound. I did it for Snoopy. I did it for Pikachu. I mean, I did it for a variety of characters, and it was actually really cool. And I could see how this could make learning a pretty boring concept a little more fun for some folks. All right,
Mm.
so let me go back now to here. We'll go into the next demo, and this is about chunking. How can we break a big task into little slices? So the prompt down here reads, turn this assignment into a step-by-step plan with a simple checklist and time estimates. Okay, so we go in, I had to scroll up to the top of the page. So at the top here in the gray box, you can see I popped in that turn this assignment into a step-by-step plan. And so I gave it an assignment. It's as if I had copied and pasted some homework assignment. Write a two-paragraph explanation of how climate change affects oceans. Include at least two examples, use evidence from the reading, and explain why this issue matters. Be sure to revise and check your writing before turning it in. Boom. And within a less than a minute, like seconds, it
Mm.
produced. Here's a step-by-step plan that you can follow, plus a simple checklist at the end. And so it gave me the plan with time estimates. It's giving me the total time, and then it's letting me know, okay, let's spend 3 to 5 minutes understanding the assignment. And how do I understand the assignment? Read the directions slowly, underline, highlight key parts. The goal here is to know exactly what your teacher's asking for. It gives me a step two, the time frame it takes, or a suggested time frame. Of course, it doesn't know me. I may need to take longer, but I'm just asking it give me a gauge here. And I could modify that. I could go in and look at this and say, I don't know. I think that's going to take me a little longer than that. And then I can go modify the prompt and get a new plan. But anyway, it does produce this whole outline, and gives guides about how to create, get started, what needs to go in the first paragraph, what can go in the second paragraph. It tells you how to draft the first paragraph, how many sentences you could probably try to generate. Start with the topic sentence. Use your notes as evidence. Um, and on it goes, and down until finally we get to the last edit and final check, and then it provides me with a checklist. So if I wanted to print this out, and be able to check off, okay, I wrote the two paragraphs, because sometimes we have rubrics and courses we're following. I did this, I got that one. Okay, we did the organization. So anyway, it provided a checklist. And then at the very end, it says, if you'd like, you can paste your draft here, and I can be your checklist buddy and walk through it with you. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It was offering, to sort of sit here with me as I'm drafting, and then I could dialogue back and forth, and then the AI would talk to me, but it would be coaching me strictly on the outline it just produced on these guidelines. Okay, so then moving on, we are going to go to another writing. This is for writing. Help a student who benefits from writing supports get started. Create a simple outline. Did I just do that one? Sounds like the one I just did. Okay, it's not. So in this one, I put in, the prompt, and the assignment in this case is write an email to your employer requesting a meeting to discuss workplace support options. It's interesting. Like I said, I use ChatGPT now. It knows that I'm always asking questions about learning disabilities and differences and variability in learning. So it says, here's your neurodiversity affirming, low barrier way to help someone get started. It includes a simple outline, optional sentence starters, and a clear structure that reduces cognitive load. I did not ask ChatGPT to reduce cognitive load. Um, it just knows my previous chats well enough to know that that's what I probably want. So it gives me a simple outline for the email, the greeting, state the purpose, give a short reason, offer a few possible times. It gives me some sentence starters for the purpose, suggests some meeting times, closing. Then it offers at the end, a suggestion. The chat GPT is saying, if you'd like, I can also create a filled in example email, a template with blanks to fill in, or more formal or more casual version. So at the end of this, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I do want a template with blanks to fill in.
Hmm.
Or, oh, yeah, maybe I don't want this to sound so formal. I mean, really. So I feel like these are some pretty good metacognitive prompts at the end of these that get you thinking about your thinking. All right, let's see. Was there anything at the, no, that was the one. Okay. And so then number four, um, I put in two different prompts. One was for IEPs and one's for accommodations. So this is the prompt here that we have on this screen says, help me prepare for an IEP meeting, create a family-friendly summary of my child's strengths, support needs, and learning preferences without using any identifying information. And then I put that prompt in. And then it says, here's a family-friendly, non-identifying summary you can bring to an IEP meeting. Kept it warm, strength-based, and clear, and you can customize each section. So I'm like, okay, you kept it warm. That's cool. Family summary for an IEP meeting. And then it's showing me that, okay, here's a list of some possible strengths. Maybe they're not mine, but it's showing me there's just a list I could choose from. It's sparking some brainstorming in me of like, okay, right, yeah, right, right. I'm this, and I do have some of that, or well, I don't know if that's really my strength, but and you could just go through it and start to think critically about what the output is providing you. It's listing support needs. Um, executive function, processing time, reduce cognitive load, consistent check-ins. I mean, it just keeps going, right? The learning preferences, learn best when, prefers visual support. Or I wouldn't use that language prefer, I would say must have visual supports. Responds well to positive reinforcement, etc. So I can kind of modify this and it gives me an idea of where to start. And then it's offering a suggestion at the end. Would you like a one-page IEP input sheet? Would you like a version formatted as a script that you can read aloud at a meeting? Uh, would you like versions with icons for sharing with teachers? I don't know why teachers would need icons, but anyway, it's kind of a cool idea. A more detailed section on the goals, the accommodations, etc. So anyway, you could see how you could just keep going and chatting with this prompt to help you brainstorm through and maybe produce the document that you're ultimately trying to produce. I also popped in this prompt. It says, help me prepare for that workplace accommodation discussion, create a summary of my strengths, support needs, and preferred ways of working without using any personal or identifying information. So then it does it. It says, here's a workplace accommodation summary. Again, it lists some example strengths, lists some example support needs that I might pick and choose from, or at least sparks my thinking about, oh yeah, um,
Mm.
preferred ways of working, which again, I might change that preference to needs to work this way. Make it a little stronger in that point. And then again, it's going to offer suggestions. Would you like a one page of a talking script, etc. So those are the demos just to give you an idea of what it would be like to go into Chat GPT. I'm using Chat GPT because we at my college we have an account. I paid for a plus subscription. Everything I've selected privacy settings, so that's why I'm using Chat GPT. But I could just as easily use Claude or Gemini, for example, to get equally good results. They just may not be identical. That's why I recommend comparing. All right, so I'm going to switch gears. Okay, so limitations and risks, bias. This is one of the something we talk about a lot in AI literacy courses. Generative AI tools are trained on data sets, and that includes information gleaned from the internet. So any dialogue data from conversations like forums, chat logs, those are all used to help train the model on how to engage in natural dialogue, respond to questions, and simulate a human-like interaction. It's trained on websites like Wikipedia or blogs that are out on the internet, forums, news sites, general information sites. So those are the reason those data sets are there is because it helps the model to provide a broad understanding of different topics and conversational styles. ChatGPT has data sets of books, so it covers various genres of fiction, nonfiction, technical, educational. The books help the model understand structured language and storytelling, and it provides it with knowledge, a knowledge base. Academic articles are in its data set. Code repositories like GitHub help the model understand programming languages. So, I mean, you can ask the Chat GPT to create an app for you, for example. And it will write the code. In fact, if you go into Chat GPT and you say, I need a PowerPoint or I would like an Excel spreadsheet that lists this in this column, this column, this column, it's going to, what you'll see is actually going to be the HTML code and the JSON code. It's code that you'll see that doesn't look like anything to us that makes sense, but it's showing you here's the code and bloom, and then it spits out a document for you to download.
Mm.
Um, okay, so another bias, AI systems sometimes use deficit-based language or embed neuronormative assumptions in the design. And this is largely due to the fact that AI systems used for disabilities aren't trained by people with disabilities. And that's something that needs to happen is that we need to be more inclusive in the building and the design of these generative AI models. So an example might be is that it may use some language to describe a neurodivergent student, and some of that language, I don't know where it got it from, right? And it may have some bias embedded in it. And so I have to be the expert then and recognize, well, that sounds kind of bad, and then change it and modify it so it's more suited to what my goals are. So there's our concerns about bias, and just be aware of it. You have to look and make sure.
Mm.
There are accessibility gaps. Not all of these tools are fully accessible. Um, and that again is because disabled voices are often excluded from the development of these tools. So again, if you really need a tool to talk to you and that tool's only going to produce alphabetic text, then it's not accessible to you in that way. So that's just you have to find out which of these tools are accessible to you in a way that you most desire and need. There's also a concern about over-reliance. I will say that, faculty are very, college faculty are, many of them are very, very concerned about over-reliance because they don't want, there's a student-teacher relationship. Um,
Mm.
and we don't want just students sitting in their dorm room all day behind their computer and just chatting with an AI. Get out there, socialize, talk to people, have relationships. So that's another concern that's about. There are others, but these are some of the more recent ones that have been published in the literature. You may also be aware of other limitations or risks. I know that our students at the college are very concerned about the environmental impact of using generative AI. And so we just completed a focus group on this chatbot we've been building, and they want to know what the carbon footprint is. Like how many gallons of water did I just use uh, to interact with this chat GPT and get this response. So they're starting to think more critically about, well, I don't think I'm going to use this tool to figure out my Christmas list, but I think I'm definitely going to use this tool to help me with my final exam. Or so, like, because they're aware of the cost involved. So they're very sensitive because this is their existential and very real crisis. So there are other risks too. I just thought I'd mention that one. Of course,
Mm.
privacy, accuracy, and safety, data protection, how private is this information? That's why I recommend never put anything private in there that names names or identifies a specific entity. Um, and be aware of hallucinations. I think these chat GPTs have gotten a lot better about not hallucinating, which is basically lying. But you have to critically read these documents to make sure of that. Um, and there's unclear boundaries right now in some schools about academic integrity. What does that mean? Is using a generative AI cheating? And I would say it depends on how you're using it. And that's kind of where faculty are right now at most schools, is figuring out in their own academic disciplines, how are the people who work in biology, how are biology using how are they using these tools? How are research scholars in literature using these tools? So there is concern about that, and it's being worked out now. Everyone's sort of figuring this out. So the bottom line, AI can be biased. It's helpful, but all tools reflect the data they're trained on. There are accessibility gaps. Not all tools are fully accessible yet. Privacy and accuracy, keep your personal information private and always check information for accuracy. And you may not know, well, how do I know if it's accurate? But and so, for example, when I was wanting to create that annotated bibliography, I had to read the articles myself, right, and assure that, okay, this is really a good summary. I just didn't have to produce the summary, but now that I've read it and I've read this article, yes, it did a great job, but I have to verify that. So, always check for accuracy. And then again, we don't want the AI to replace real social relationships either. Not forever and for all people all time. So some practical tips. Review and double check your answers for accuracy. Be aware of those biases. Never share private information with AI tools. Try different tools designed for specific learning and workplace needs. Talk with your teachers, your supervisors, disability services, HR about how AI can support learners and employees. And keep track of what tools are working well for you or your student. Not all tools are the right tool. And it's worth to just kind of be attentive, mindful of which tools you're using and why you're using them and how effective was that. And then, know your school or your employer's AI policy. That's important. And when kids come to college, it's a different policy in every classroom because all the faculty have a different policy. So they have to read the syllabus to know what is the policy in this class because it isn't necessarily across the whole campus, for example, and at least in um, at the post-secondary ed level, for example. I don't even know if most employers have an AI policy, but it's worth asking. Um, and it's always good to disclose and cite the AI use when that's appropriate, especially like in my field, for example. I need to disclose when I'm using it, which is not saying, oh, I cheated, I used it. It's just saying I actually used ChatGPT to help generate some ideas for this. I then popped my draft in. It helped me refine the organization. I mean, that's the kind of disclosure statement that I'm talking about. And that's certainly, I don't know how it's concerned an employer would be with that, but I do know an educator or teacher is definitely going to want to know those kinds of details. And then I popped some links in here too, some the places you can go, some websites, so that you can learn more from some trusted AI education resources. And really, I think we'll start seeing more and more at all levels, from K through 12, right into college. Lots of AI literacy courses and programming taking place right now, and will continue to take place. And if you go to these sites, and I'll put a copy of this in the chat so you'll have it. These explain all, you just get a sense of what are AI literacies and what are schools headed for, and what are the competencies involved in this. As employers, very much are interested in the competencies associated with knowing how to prompt, knowing how to get these results, knowing how to refine these results. So I popped those in there for you. Okay, so getting back now to the resources, let's see here. Let's see, do I have access to the chat? Hold on. I'm going to,
You do, Michelle.
I
You do
do,
have access.
awesome. So what
Yeah.
I'm going to do is I'm going to pop into the chat shortly, not yet, but shortly, 4 resources. Well, actually, it'll be 5 because it'll include this PowerPoint. But I have a document for you, and I'm going to just switch my screen a little bit to another tab. Once getting started, sorry about that scroll, getting started with AI prompts. Um, the prompts that we did in the demo, they're in here as well as some others. And these are just quick little try it. You see what you get. And so these are just some examples, explain this in a way I can understand. Again, there's that one about helping me prepare for a meeting. Um, and at the bottom, you'll see my disclosure statement. So in creating this document, ChatGPT and Poe were used to brainstorm ideas, search for information, experiment with prompts, and then compare outputs. And if you'd like to know more about my use of this tool, please feel free to contact me. And maybe at that point, that's when I can say, yeah, sure, I'm happy to share the link to the chat so you can see it for yourself. Um, I'm also sharing an AI tools tracker. Um, this might be really useful it's great for anybody, but I think it's especially useful for folks in school who an educator like an IEP, they want to see progress. Have you made your progress? What is our learning goal? What kinds of AI tools are we going to be introducing? How's this tool going to be used, and how are we going to evaluate the progress? So for example, if you want to increase reading comprehension, then maybe the tool you're using is a text to speech for reading comprehension. And maybe you're going to be using it during study sessions, and after 1 month, you're going to check to see if this has been effective in some way, and if it's improving your reading comprehension, or if you feel like you're becoming more confident as a reader, for example. I also dropped in 2 links right here. Goblin Tools. This is a special set of tools that were created by a neurodivergent computer software engineer, but it's really for anybody. But Goblin Tools can help you do all the things we just talked about without having to go into ChatGPT. So you can go to Goblin Tools. In fact, I might just have to click on that and show you quickly.
Oh,
The
cool.
magic to do, magic to-do list. There's the formalizer, the judge, the estimator. You want to estimate how long something's going to take. You need some advice, and I'm not talking about personal relationships, but just like, I really don't want to go to that game tonight. Well, but I don't know that I haven't really used that one as much. It's more of a consultant though to help you decide about a bigger, I think, kind of decision making. But I'm not, we'll have to check that one out more. The professor helped me explains things. Um, I've got all these ideas and I'm just going to dump them in. And so the compiler is going to help me organize my thoughts so that I can have some action strategies. There's a chef. So you could say, here are the ingredients in my fridge. Give me a
Mm.
recipe. And then there's a whole section here for teacher tools. But teachers also use Goblin tools. Um, and I've also got it. So that was in the tracker. Forest is another app that helps you focus. It'll help you focus. And so it grows trees. So that, the more you hold your focus, you've grown a forest. So it's a little gamified in that way. And I'm gonna close out of these right now. Okay, so I also have AI prompting tips. Those are just the tips we went over already in the presentation. And then here's a document of AI, IEP AI, IEP AI resources for families. Um, and I'll just scroll down. You can see I put in a bunch of different tools that are available to you. They're either free or they have some freemium. It's free for a little bit. You have to read through that, but there are some tools in here that you can use. And so I've broken it down into what are the key features of each IEP tool. How does it fit in an inclusive learner lens? Is it free? What's the licensing involved? And what are some of the privacy issues that we know about? Or is this going to collect my data and sell it to 5,000 people? What's happening here with that? So that's also in here. Okay, so now I am going to, if I can see here, if I can stop. Let's see. Okay. I'm trying to stop sharing my, okay, here we go. Now I've got the main screen back and now, haha, I can pop into the chat. Um, Hold on just a second. Few too many things in here. Okay. So this is AI prompting. I'm going to pop these in all in one chat, hopefully. um, Getting started, and then the presentation itself, and then hopefully you guys see that in the chat. Did it make it? Yes. Awesome. So those are copies of all the files that I just showed you. Um, And I think that, when you take off this evening, it would be great to be thinking about, what are some of the ways that, let me go back into this um, presentation slide, but what are some things that you could try this week? Is there something you can do to make one task easier? Is there a routine that you'd like support? Do you want to learn a new concept? And just try small and see what happens. So that is the conclusion of my presentation. I think we are at time at this point.
Mm.
So I think I will quit sharing, and hopefully you're not seeing my screen anymore.
Yeah.
Awesome. So any questions? And if you don't have them now, you think of them later, you can certainly email me. Put my email in the chat too. Oops, didn't type that up right. Okay.
Michelle, you can talk to me about a program that you can send to schools so that like our school in the beginning was very hesitant when we started, talking about using AI for helping our daughter be able to lower, reading levels of certain text and stuff
Yeah.
like that. They were hesitant about it because they really didn't have, a lot of AI experience. You had mentioned a program or a course or something about helping schools learn a little bit more about AI and maybe coming a little more around to it. Do you remember that program?
Yeah, there's
MIT, I think it was, or
I think I'm remembering this correctly. It was called the Day of AI.
yes, that's what it
Uh,
was. Thank you.
and I will put that in the chat, the link. And this is a program really for K through 12. But this is how schools can sort of get on board with starting these AI literacy initiatives. If you go to the Day of AI, it's the whole focus of the program is to empower schools and students to learn, and they provide a free curriculum. They provide professional development opportunities. They will work with you to set up this day of AI at your school. So there's a lot going on here. I recommend that you click through that. And this is in collaboration, I believe, with MIT. This is not exclusive to Massachusetts, however. So I believe that was that one as well. There's also now more learning management systems too that are coming out that are
Yeah.
more generative AI friendly and are actually already using them, and that maybe they have bots already embedded in them. But this is all really new. It's all happening right now and coming out. So. But yeah, I hope that you were able to learn something new this evening, and I hope that, this gives you some more confidence if you didn't have it before to just dig in and try it. You really don't need any experience. I was an English major, I was not a computer science major. So,
Michelle, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Michelle, for Dr. Michelle Deal?
all right.
She so kindly shared her email with us. So, definitely reach out if you guys have additional questions,
Yep.
or if you
Feel free.
yourself want to know how to, you work with an employer and you know that maybe this could be part of your accommodations.
Yeah.
How do I use that and how do I get that as an accommodation? Those are great questions to kind of think about later on. And I'm sure
Yeah.
Dr. Michelle Deal will definitely help kind of guide you in which ways, how to start those conversations.
Definitely. And if you go to that website of a Universal Design for Learning, I mentioned it earlier, the link is in the PowerPoint presentation. That will help you identify some accommodations that you might need, for example, and frame it in the UDL framework. I don't know of an educator today that hasn't heard at least of universal design for learning. It's coming, I think, the norm. So, which
And
is
yay
good.
for that.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
Absolutely. Well, tonight's session has been recorded, so I will be sending that out tomorrow with all of the links and information and everything in an email to follow up. It was lovely having you tonight, Dr. Deal. I am going to go
Thank you.
ahead and I will stop the recording. But I just wanted